Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and deceased. It is I, Emily Sophia, aka Mighty Sophia, here to break down for you guys the latest episode of The Walking Dead. So we are on season 6, episode 11, Knots Untie, and spoiler alert, as always, as I shall be bearing all in this review. And if there are any topics that I fail to cover in this review that you would really like to discuss, I would super love it if you would bring those topics up in the comments below so we can all have a good old chat and, continue the dialogue from here. So let's go. Now, this episode marked more of a return to form for The Walking Dead, since last week we kind of had a lighter, more humor-laced experience and even got the introduction of a new romance. And this episode features the beginning of our steady approach to finally meeting Negan and his saviors, which I say finally, and I probably shouldn't be anticipating it all that much because his presence is inevitably going to spell out some catastrophic losses for our crew. I'm going to call it now, and it sounds like this guy is very bad news, but I say finally because I have been anticipating the presence of a new big bad in a way. So this is it's an exciting journey that we're taking for sure. And we got to cover a lot of interesting ground as we make our way towards Negan this week. So first and foremost, I'm going to try to address some of the things that happened with more of our minor characters and then get to the meat of matters and the events with Jesus in the Hilltop colony and the deal that Maggie strikes with their douchey leader, Gregory. So first of all, we see Abraham is trying to kind of figure out where he is at in life and trying to weigh his romantic matters now that things have settled down enough that he can actually think about, do I want to stay with my current lady friend or explore the possibility of a little something with Sasha? If you guys recall, on the first half of the season, we did get, I believe it was within the season, we saw Abraham and Sasha together, and there were certain things questioned about their connection to each other. And so we do get to kind of see Abraham exploring, why would you want to settle down and try to start a family in this post-apocalyptic wasteland? Granted, sure, they've had a couple of months to breathe after everything almost completely fell apart in Alexandria, but nonetheless, it's tough to fathom willingly wanting to go forward and bring a child into this godforsaken world. Well, it's not entirely godforsaken. We do have Jesus in our midst, but so he almost gets strangled later on at the Hilltop colony. And then that, after all of those shenanigans ensue, and, he had been talking with Glenn about the bun in the oven and the Bisquick and the pancakes innuendo, it seems like he comes out on the other side of the episode, he's looking at the little ultrasound peanut in Maggie's belly, and he's getting the warm, fuzzy feelings and thinking, hey, maybe there's more to cling on to in life, which, inevitably spells out his demise because that's the show we're dealing with. But good on Abraham. It's good to see him, taking in the positive vibes. Could use that a little bit. Now, I'm really bummed that we haven't seen Carol or Morgan recently. I hope that they're working out their differences in the backdrop, but it sounds like Carol has been up to something else or isn't currently in Alexandria, so maybe she's making a supply run. But anyway, we see that Carl discovers what's been going on in his daddy's bedroom, and he's actually okay with it, which is really nice. Unlike Jesse's son, who flipped his lid over his mother's relationship with Mr. Ranger Rick, we see that Carl is very much comfortable with the idea of a relationship being struck between Michonne and his father, and I think that the two of them are so sweet on each other. It is great. I mean, I've been celebrating since last Sunday, celebrating this Sunday, Leonardo DiCaprio got his Oscar, Rick gets his girl, all is right with the world. But anyway, so what ends up happening is the group discovers that Jesus actually is kind of a trustworthy guy. At least he seems to be right now. He has a very powerful position in his Hilltop community. And as it turns out, despite him busting in on Rick and Michonne down in their skivvies after romantic intercourse, he's not that creepy of a dude. In fact, he's a pretty upstanding guy, and he trusts them enough to show him his place and to quite possibly strike up a trade relationship with them. And that evolved quite a bit over the course of the episode as Negan and the Saviors turn one of the Hilltop community members against the rest of the community, cue the bloodshed and the negotiations, and what do you know, Alexandria is getting half of the foodstuffs from Hilltop in order to take care of their little Negan problem. And it's a decision ultimately that makes a lot of sense, because I think what everybody is clamoring for at this point is sustainability, And we gather that these communities that have sprung up or that have survived and established themselves, they probably all have an area in which they are a bit lacking. When Maggie is sent to be the ambassador for the group by Rick, who decides that he should not be the one to put his foot forward, and that, Maggie, based on her leadership credentials, her longevity, and also kind of overseeing things with Deanna back in her day, essentially Maggie's the best person for the job and the best person to represent what the Alexandrian community needs. She's not only in touch with her crew of trained fighters, but also knows what the other residents want, what they need. And so she's kind of trying to figure out what the Hilltop situation is, while Gregory is trying to figure out what her situation is and is playing things real strange and very uncomfortably, but Maggie's not going to take any of that sitting down. And ultimately, after Gregory finds himself stabbed in the stomach and confined to bed rest, well, Maggie makes him an offer he can't refuse, and reveals just how in danger this Hilltop community is of collapsing. Although, it appears that they're well reinforced, at least against walkers. We know that they have taken up a relationship with Negan and his crew, and they're continuing to squeeze them for more and more and more and more. And it would probably be in their best interest to take a more violent approach instead of simply acquiescing and just rolling over and letting the Saviors take everything right out from under them. Whereas, of course, Rick and his crew from Alexandria, they possess the badassery, the combat skills, the logistical knowledge to be able to take down some pretty formidable foes. From Woodbury to Terminus, they got the skills. So it looks like, based on the preview for next week, Rick is going to be bringing the issue of Negan and the Saviors up with the rest of the Alexandrians, and so there's going to be a brief period before they actually go forward into this kill mission, but I'm very much excited for this. This has been a long time coming, and it was especially for you comic fans. I have not read far enough in the comics to know about Negan other than his name and the fact that he swings a baseball bat and he's really vulgar. That's just about all I know. But nonetheless, I've been anticipating this for quite a long time. So yeah, it's an interesting episode. There's a little rescue mission that the group gets to go on, and then ultimately they end up at Hilltop. They get cleaned up. Maggie talks with Greg. Things don't go so hot. And then one of the Hilltoppers, I guess if you want to call them, returns and begins to attack everybody. Or, well, send a message to Greg in the stomach via a stabbing method. Which results in pretty much everybody breaking it down. The fighting begins, and there's a glorious moment in which Rick is pinned by the guy sent back by Negan, and he has a knife blade cutting into his neck and chin, and you know, Michonne and Daryl come to his aid, do what they do, and distract the guy just long enough for Rick to frickin' take a chunk of his face out. The blood pours all over him. His face is covered in another man's blood. I mean, these are the kinds of introductions that Rick so fabulously makes. I mean, the guy is the master of first impressions. That is first and foremost on his resume. And then he just looks around and he's like, what? What you gonna do? This is standard procedure for Mr. Nicolas Cage over here, but, and now the rest of the Hilltoppers know. And Jesus, being the peacemaker and peacekeeper, is able to get everybody to simmer down a little bit and to realize that, okay, this is the crux of the matter. So, you guys need food. We've got food. We've also got a bigger problem. And, of course, this kindles a memory in Rick's mind of when Daryl and company ran into some of the saviors. And, well, luckily those guys were blown up, but there are evidently still many more out there. And pretty much the way that they operate is they take and take and take. And all that they give in return is life. Which, I mean, that sounds far more generous than it really is. And yeah, so pretty much they can siphon off of whoever they want and take advantage of anyone who doesn't have the ability to retaliate. And we're going to assume that Rick and his band of merry men and women have what it takes to stand up to Negan and to make something happen, make something budge. But inevitably, things are going to get crazier than they expect. But yeah, so there's a good opportunity for Maggie to finally stand up to Gregory, who is laying down. And, you know, he's trapped. He's floored. He can't do anything about the situation, and he realizes that no matter how much he tries to put his foot down, Maggie and crew have a point. And I love getting to see Maggie wield her power and to be just such an integral figure in this episode. I mean, even with her pregnancy, she is going forward. She's doing everything she can, you know, as an ambassador, as a leader, as somebody who has a voice, who takes a stance, who has power. I just love to see that for her character. It is marvelous. So we get that. We get Jesus on board, and everybody decides that, yeah, they're going to get 50% of the food. And in return, they're going to do a little errand. Yeah, scratch their back, get their back scratched. It's all going to be good, right? But, yeah, we know better than that. So this is still a relatively more peaceful episode, punctuated with some fun, bloody moments, and, yeah, it's just really good to see everybody in motion, excuse me, and that there's momentum and moving forward to the next major step. And for Rick and company, that major step is securing their place, securing their homeland, but they're opening a whole new can of worms over here, so best of luck to them. But thank you so much for watching my review. Again, anything I missed, bring it up in the comments. This is just the beginning of the conversation, so I love you all so much. And as always, I will be back before you know it.